champion strikes back. Max Verstappen wins the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc wins the Monaco Grand Prix to achieve his dream. Off goes Leclerc, through goes Hamilton. Lando Norris wins for the first time in Formula One. He's out around the outside. He's run out of road. It's lights out and away we go.
Woohoo.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to EFF-1T, the Formula One podcast with Neil
and Bekah.
All right, so this week we're talking a little bit, doing a quick recap for the Miami Grand Prix. I think it was a little bit more exciting than kind of what I was expecting. The first two, in my opinion, were last year's. I think was pretty good. I know the first inaugural one was a little bit boring. I know a lot of people had issues. Attendees had issues with costs and things like that. And costs are still kind of high, to be perfectly honest. We looked into it. We debated it a lot. We almost got Saturday tickets. We probably should have, because that was definitely the best day to be out there.
Definitely.
Lots of rain. Sprint was a little bit more exciting, I think, probably than the race itself. But I guess we'll get into it here. First up, let's just kind of go with some of our initial stuff. We usually like to give 3 thoughts about the race. So I'll kick it over to Bekah for her first thought about the race.
My first thing was in the sprint. Again, Lando and the safety car. McLaren really executing their safety car strategies well in Miami. I think it was like the safety car overall affecting the sprint was interesting to watch because we had like large gaps and there were time penalties that were still being decided on, time penalties that needed to be served, and the safety car like changed the order a lot. Like Verstappen had a penalty that still would have left him with good points if it hadn't been for the safety car, and they finished, and so he ended up dead last out of the drivers left on track. And so, yeah, I think that was very interesting sprint with the safety car. I don't think we've had a race finish under the safety car within the past year. We didn't have one last year.
No, I don't think we've seen it finish that way now. It's been a long time.
Yeah. So, found out today is the first time Max has finished a race without points since Belgium 2016. So...
yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was my first point.
Okay. Yeah. I think for me it was Ferrari seems to be able to sprint, but they can't actually race the car. Lewis Hamilton was another really good sprint. Obviously not quite as good, not like the Chinese sprint where he finished first, but really good opportunity for him as the track was clearing up. Switched over his tires at just the right time, and then was able to take advantage of the safety car in the end. And kind of on top of that, I think, just really good situation for the Ferrari. Only a second behind second place there. Oscar Piastri in second, Lewis Hamilton in third, just over a second behind him. So great podium finish for him, and took home some much needed points for Ferrari as they are really struggling here in the outset. Different story for them in the race itself. Just right in the middle field of the points, finishing 7th and 8th. Leclerc and Hamilton kind of going back and forth a little bit on who actually had pace. Hamilton, I think, with the pace at first, because I think he was on medium tires to Leclerc's hards. And then as he kind of sat behind there waiting to get ahead and finally was let past, Leclerc's tires came in, warmed up, wore out a little bit, and picked up some life. And then Leclerc was just a little bit faster, but neither one of them were nearly fast enough to make any kind of headway against. Who was it? Was it Albon 6?
Albon was 5th. Kimi was 6th.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's right. It was a McLaren or a Mercedes. Yeah, trying to make some headway against Kimi, but no luck there. Finishing 2 seconds back. I think, which is about where they were when they came out of their pit change. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Loving the commentary from the drivers this season. Like, I feel like we've seen a lot of it with like Charles Leclerc and his words of wisdom, Alex Albon, like, I'm better than everyone else, and then Hamilton at Miami was like, do you want to have some tea while you're at it?
Maybe a little bit more personality from a lot of drivers.
Yeah. McLaren, incredibly strong weekend for McLaren. 1-2 in the sprint, and the race just swapped drivers, Norris and Piastri, and then Piastri and Norris. So I think it's a very interesting drivers' championship battle we're seeing from them. And man, Oscar just disappeared during the race. He finished, I believe, 37 seconds ahead of third place, which was George Russell. It's nice to see. Good car again. Great strategy from them. And yeah, really good points. It's awesome to see.
Yeah. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm trying to die over here.
Medic.
Because Ferrari is having so many issues. And I'll go back to Ferrari here and back to Lewis Hamilton as well, and kind of talking about the personalities and the radio chatter. I think we've seen this always from Lewis Hamilton, but Lewis Hamilton is nothing if not honest on the radio. So getting that good pit strategy in the sprint, which popped him from what he's started, I think, 7th and made his way up into 3rd on the podium, due in large part to the really good pit strategy. Immediately on the radio, back to the pits and back to his team with kudos. Did a mega job on the pit. Did a great job timing it out, getting him out, and then getting him in and out quickly. And he was just immediately on the radio telling them what a great job they did. And then the next day, during the race itself, I was not shy about getting back on the radio and telling them what a terrible job they were doing, how terrible the strategy was. Letting Carlos Sainz get up pretty close to him. Finish there was really close. Only 0.4 seconds, not even 0.4 seconds, less than 0.4 seconds between Hamilton and Carlos. It was a drag race down to the finish line for those two. So, just getting to see more Lewis Hamilton on the radio. We've seen that before. Saw that all the time there at Mercedes, where especially I used to always think he was always really down on his tire life.
Yeah.
And then he would always manage to make
My tires are gone. My tires are gone.
I don't know if that was him actually being nervous that they were actually gone, or if it was just him trying to put that radio chatter out there so other teams would pick it up and think his tires were gone. And then
actually just storm out of him.
They were just fine, and he was going to storm ahead anyway. So, just a lot of interesting, fun stuff coming from Hamilton over the weekend.
Yeah. My last point was Yuki Tsunoda had a fairly decent weekend. Finished towards the bottom both times.
That's fairly decent.
Of the points. Bottom of the points, but still points. Okay.
10th in the race.
And 6th in the sprint. He got promoted, managed to keep himself close enough to the people in the back of the points. So when they were, unfortunately for Ollie Behrman, were handed penalties, he got promoted, grabbed 2 points in the sprint? What is it? Hang on. I can't read. 3 points. 3 points in the sprint, and was handed a penalty as well during the race, but managed to keep himself ahead of Isaac Hadj all the way to the end and hold on to 10th place. So, semi-decent points for Yuki this weekend. Nice to see that he's managing points in the Red Bull, and hoping we see even higher results as he gets used to the car and upgrades start coming in.
Yep. For me, I think last thing was Haas just missing out on stuff. Like Bekah just mentioned, Ollie Behrman. Sorry, that was a creepy crawly that is no longer creeping or crawling. Ollie Behrman in the sprint race, another like really good race from him. Started 19th and made his way up to 10th.
Yes.
And was actually looking to move up from 10th to possibly 8th with what's his name? What's that guy's name? Lewis Hamilton. Or not Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen getting relegated down 10 seconds. And then who's that? Liam Lawson, I think, was also the other one who took a time penalty. And so we thought he was going to bump up 2 points, but then came out that he had an unsafe release in the pit. I think during the safety car, but as well. But that hit him for 5 seconds, and so he ended up taking a tumble from 10th down to 14th. Lost, not 10th, 8th. We thought he was going to be 8th and move up possibly to 6th. So thought he was guaranteed at least 1 point. Maybe would have gotten as many as 3, but ended up with no points. So that really stings for Haas, especially being one of those midfield teams right now. They really need the points. They again coming up empty on race day itself. Ollie, I think, had a really tough time out there.
Yeah.
He finished. Where did he finish?
He DNF'd.
Yeah, DNF. That's right. His car just blew up and started smoking on him. So, yeah, Ollie with the DNF. And then Ocon, who started 9th, and I think at one point was running like 9-10 for a good amount of the race. But he, too, I think just had some bad pit strategy and ended up in 12th. So, missed out on points as well. So, all told, Haas team, no points from the first U.S. race. Which they kind of call a home race for them, but it's not really. Still sitting in, because I think Austin is really technically their home race, because Austin was first as far as U.S. Grand Prix, and so I think they really looked at Austin as more in line with their home race. Miami, of course, and of course Las Vegas, both. They really try to perform well there in front of U.S. crowds. But we'll see what happens when Cadillac comes in next year. Which one they claim? I think they might go with Miami because
I think so.
They had a reveal, although I felt like it went like under the radar. For anybody watching, that wasn't at the race, but.
From what I saw, it was kind of like a kickoff event to kickstart their team, but there wasn't any real reveal of the car or drivers or anything.
Yeah, I think people were hoping to get a little bit more insight into the potential driver lineup, or maybe even get 1 or 2 drivers announced. But none of that happened. So they even looking for like a livery reveal, but I didn't get any of that. But
apparently the drivers are still very TBD for Cadillac.
Yeah. So, all right. That's all I had. Do you have anything else now?
Honestly, I really quick want to mention Williams. I think they had an interesting weekend. I think Carlos ended up DNFing in the sprint, but Albon ran a very strong race in the sprint. Was also one of those drivers that was looking like he was going to get good points, and then also hit with a penalty for safety car infringement, ended up 11th with no points.
That's who was getting penalized that we thought would bump Behrman up.
It was Verstappen and Albon that we thought would bump Ollie up.
Carlos to have the DNF.
Yeah, but then I think they brought it back pretty well in the race. Alex finishing 5th, right behind Verstappen. So pretty good. Well, pretty good distance off, but like
10 seconds.
Okay, not
9.
right behind, but like
9 seconds.
figure of speech. Okay, finishing behind.
That's him up there.
Finishing behind Verstappen in 5th, 10 whole points for Williams. Standing pretty good at 5th in the constructors, I believe.
I'll talk about that in a second.
And Carlos holding on to 9th, I believe. There was a small collision between him and Hamilton towards the very end of the race that he was going to be investigated for afterwards, but that ended up not resulting in any action. So 2 points for him. And yeah, I think Williams really brought it back from the sprint.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Becca, what about our rookie recap for this weekend?
Whew. Interesting weekend for the rookies. Kimi Antonelli. I said it. I'm pretty sure I said it last episode. Kimi's at least getting pole at some point, and then he gets the sprint pole in Miami. I know I said that. I will look back and make sure
that statement. Kimi Antonelli will get pole at some point. He's one of the youngest driver and has the potential longest career of any of them ahead of him. So at some point,
I said
pole.
this year. I said this year. This year.
So Antonelli on pole for sprint. Did he do anything with it?
He tried.
Keep going. Oh, 7th. That was a great day.
Okay. I think it's still very impressive. I called it. Of course, kind of hard to compete with the McLarens right behind you on the front row.
Pushing out. Yeah, Oscar.
He did not push Kimi.
No, that's right. Yeah.
He did not push
Not
Kimi.
This time.
Still, again.
I'm sorry, he's done it 2 races in a row.
Anyways, Antonelli, unfortunately, dropping all the way down to 7th. I think a lot of that had to do with rain and pit strategy. Still managed to bring home 2 points, right behind Yuki Tsunoda. I think he actually also got promoted because of the penalties.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So he was naming the points before the penalties kicked in.
That's right. I remember that. I was like, man, he started on pole. He might not even get points now. That's sad. And then promotion, managed to get some points. My phone is exploding. One moment.
Yeah. No, not in the middle of the podcast.
Turning it up. Yeah, and then again, qualifying 3rd for the race qualifying. Again, very impressive. Finishing 6th, so not as impressive, but still brought home more points for Mercedes. And we discovered through Miami that Kimi Antonelli memorizes all of his lap times ever because he has a photographic memory.
Oh,
yeah. We have talked about, like, Mom and I were talking about it. They do that.
Well, that sounds like something you talked about.
What? What?
Okay.
They mentioned it on the commentary, but yeah, he memorizes all his lap times so that he can improve, which I think explains why he's getting so many fastest laps because he knows what he has to improve on. And then, unfortunately, for a lot of the other rookies, not great weekends. 4 DNFs in the race itself, all of them being rookies. I believe Duhan, Ollie, Bortoletto, and Liam Lawson all DNFing. Jack, I believe, was from a crash. Ollie was because his engine stopped working. Bortoletto was also his car, and Lawson, I believe, was also involved in a crash. So, chaotic weekend for the rookies, to say the least. And Isaac Hadjar. Again, I think very good performance for being in the V carb and what's generally considered midfield car. Tried very hard to catch up to Yuki at the end of the race. I think we were talking about like his team's probably just like, man, you gotta stay within 5 seconds of him. And unfortunately, but maybe fortunately, Isaac just missed out on staying within 5 seconds of Yuki.
5.2 seconds.
Yeah.
232 seconds. 5.232 seconds.
Yeah, so missed out on points in the actual race. What did he get in the sprint? Hold on. 10th. So again, no points for Isaac this weekend, but I think he's still performing incredibly well. And then something we're gonna get into about one of the rookies that we no longer have with us in Formula One. Alpine. I think it was very interesting. So I think, as we all know, Jack Doohan is no longer racing for Alpine, at least for the next 5 races. And Franco Colapinto is back in F1 and will take the place of 6th rookie in the grid. I'm very excited to see what he does because he had pretty strong performances with Williams last year after replacing Logan Sargent. I do feel bad for Jack, but it is very interesting because Alpine's had a lot of shakeups recently. Their team principal resigned shortly after Miami, and literally hours later they announced the driver switch. It was weird to see because leading up to Miami and afterwards they were like, no guys, Jack is staying, don't worry, he's going to be racing in Imola. And then the team principal quits and they're like, actually no.
Resigns.
I think it's very interesting that we now have Flavio Briatore in managing the team principal role.
Yeah.
For the time being, covering that role. It's gonna be interesting to see given his history in F1.
Yeah. I don't know enough of it, but I know it's been met with mixed reviews. Okay, well then tell us about it. Like, if you've read up on it.
Well, let's start with being banned from F1 for being proven to have told a driver to crash on purpose to ensure points for the team, so that the teammate could get points. I believe there's also a history of tax fraud, and other bribery.
Okay.
So very interesting to see at Alpine right now. And they seem to go through team principles very quick. Like Oliver Oakes was there for less than a year. He joined last summer, in about June or July, I believe, and left in May. So, yeah, a lot of disturbance at Alpine. Hoping Franco will do well. And I think that leads into our next bit.
So let's take last few minutes here. We'll try to keep it under half an hour. Just keep it sane. Do a quick look ahead. Imola is next, right?
Yes.
That should be a lot of fun as we head that way. Team standings, McLaren Mercedes, that is, just running away with it right now. 246. Next closest is Mercedes AMG, over 100 points behind them. And then Red Bull right behind, almost kind of right behind, 105 points. The AMG's 141. And then in what's becoming a very distant 4th, Ferrari, really struggling out there, 94 points to their name. And then rounding out the top 5 is Williams, now Williams Mercedes, Only 37, so this is where really the quote unquote best of the rest starts up, and you get the rest of the field competing. Behind them, Haas Ferrari after their pretty good results, and especially in China, really helped them out. But then followed up with some good results. Not Japan, but where else did they perform well?
Ooh. I'm working.
And then Haas there sitting at 20 points, trying to hold off Aston Martin, who's at 14. And then closing out with the Racing Bulls, Alpine, and Kick Sauber, all of who have points this year. I think we've talked about before. After race 3, every team had points.
Believe so.
Which is last year we almost finished with a team having no points, right?
Yeah, Sauber did not score until
second to last race or something.
Yeah, Qatar.
Yeah,
I believe.
something like that. And then in our driver standings, Piastri is, as everybody predicted, the championship leader at the moment. Nobody did.
Everybody.
But so kind of brings into question who's McLaren's number one, because Lando Norris is now
Papaya Rules is
16
their number one
points
driver.
back, which that's just one poor finish by Piastri and a great finish by Norris to get that swapped back. But the longer that goes on and the more wins Piastri can put down, the harder and harder it's going to be for Norris to catch up. Because the more you score points, the further ahead in the championship you get. So that's usually how that works. Verstappen, I think, is probably out of it this year. He's at 99. Obviously, you can't rule completely out, but he is at 99. And then George Russell, who has not won a race, is right behind Verstappen with 93.
I think he's been in perpetual third.
Yeah, which oddly enough, Leclerc kind of did that at the beginning of last season,
did.
where he just kept running third, maybe second, third, and he got a few wins under his belt. And before you knew it, it was almost him, and it was almost a three-way race between him, Verstappen, and Norris going into Vegas, and that's where Verstappen finally shut the door on everybody. So, and then speaking of Leclerc behind Russell, 40 points back, sitting at 53 points. So not looking good for him at all. In fact, rookie Kimi Antonelli is right behind him, only 5 points back at 48. So
one good Mercedes and one bad Ferrari.
It's looking to be a really interesting season, especially just to see who works things out for McLaren. And who can start putting some distance on the other driver, and then what happens after that, really, like who's going to be able to hang around. Again, for me, I'm really hoping to see Haas hold on to that 6th position. They were close last year, but weren't able to hold 6. It does mean an extra boost in revenue going into the next season, so hopefully they can get back out there, get some more points, and hold off Aston Martin for a few more races here. And hopefully the other ones, Alpine and Racing Bulls, kind of continue to falter and struggle through the season.
Yeah. The other Haas race that they did really well was Bahrain. Ocon finished 8th and Ollie finished 10th.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
So Imola should be an exciting race for team wins. Ferrari leads with the most wins at Imola with 8, and then McLaren behind them with 6. So it should be really interesting. I think this is the one known as a Temple of Speed. And in the past, like I said, Ferrari have historically done well here. It is their home race. They like to come out and give it all they've got. And so hopefully we can see another really good performance from Ferrari here, although it's going to be, I think, really difficult for them to compete against those McLarens. Anything else for you?
I don't think so. I think it's just going to be very interesting to see how the driver swap goes, if we have any more driver swaps this year. Interestingly, I feel like many of the teams are feeling very solid with their drivers right now, and there's not going to be very many swaps unless drivers decide to leave for whatever reason, which I can't imagine why they would. So, yeah, I think Imola is going to be very fun. It's the beginning of another triple header, so
Yeah,
we'll be back after that.
Yeah, I think we'll wait for depending on how things go with Imola and Monaco.
Oh, Monaco, man.
Depending on how those two races go, we may break in before Spain, if or break in if Imola is a lot of really good, then we'll break in before Monaco. So we'll just see how it goes, how much action we get out of these races to see when we come back. Probably going to be after the triple header is over. All right. I think that's all I've got. And if that's all you've got, then I think we'll probably kick it off there. And we will see you guys next after we've got a couple more races under our belts and probably figured out who's going to be the lead driver for McLaren.
Woohoo!
Charles Leclerc wins the Monaco Grand Prix to achieve his dream.